Well, people in Louisiana are reporting fewer cases of identity theft. Kenya Ross is here with the details. Kenya?
Yes, Jennifer, remember last year I reported that Louisiana sat at #2 for identity theft for 2022, and it's looking like the state is dropping on the list. The Federal Trade Commission saw Louisiana drop to number 15 in the ranking for identity theft reports for 2023. The state came down to that number after ranking #2 for 2022. A 2024 report from an online security software review company writes that with the rise of artificial intelligence-driven scams, some states are in danger of being at risk of identity theft. When it comes to identity theft risk, the report says Louisiana ranks 41st, indicating that it is among the safest. In 2023, the Federal Trade Commission reported that Louisiana gathered more than 12,000 identity theft reports. This number improved after the commission reported that the state collected more than 24,000 identity theft reports in 2022. The online security software review company reported that Louisiana has implemented only 2 out of 5 key identity theft-related laws. Those 2 laws include addressing phishing scams, which is a practice known for scammers to send out emails or other emails pretending to be reputable companies, and also the security freeze law for minors' credit reports. For 2023, Arkansas improved in their identity ranking. The state now ranks 28th with more than 5,000 identity thefts reported. Mississippi also saw improvement compared to 2022. The state now sits at ranking 21st when it ranked number 10 in 2022. The state dropped in identity theft report numbers. In 2022, it had more than 10,000 reports. For 2023, the Federal Trade Commission recorded more than 6,000 reports in Mississippi. And on Knoe.com, all is ways you can help prevent identity theft.